There we go. So that we can really, truly spread this to the world, right? So I'm so excited for it. And I'm so excited that each and every single one of you are here. Like, I'm okay. Oh, all right. So let's get started. Let's read right away and we'll see how this goes. And I think the ideal thing will be we're going to read for 30 minutes. And if it's really how you feel called to, like something that you want to speak on that we're reading, either mark the page, write it down, highlight it, your question you have, your knowledge, your wisdom you want to share, and then we'll do all of that at the end. So we'll get through the reading without interruption, and then we'll discuss the material. Yeah.
How are we going to do the reading, Lisa? Are we going to take turns or?
Yeah, what I'm going to do, so right now I'm going to, so 30 minutes divided by 8 is 3 minutes and 3/4. So I'll set the timer and each one of us will read for 3 3/4 minutes, or let's say 4 minutes, then let's just go 4. We can do 32 minutes. We'll read for 4 minutes each and we'll start. And why don't we go in order of our first names? So we'll do Alana, Anna, Crystal, me, Nikki, Rosie, Shoshana. We'll start with that for today. Does that sound good? So I'll set a timer.
Are you setting the timer individually, or are you setting it for the 32 minutes?
I'm going to do 4 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just so that.
And we're starting at the introduction, right?
We're good. Yeah. And then, so I was discussing before the last 2 or 3 of you got on, we're going to start at introduction. My book says page 3.
Lisa, we're starting to drop later. Maybe we should all do 3 minutes each. So we
Sorry, say that again.
We're starting, it's 8:13. We're starting.
Oh,
to
you're
drop
right.
late.
Okay. So yeah, good call. That's great. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Can we take a picture together with the book?
I wondered.
We certainly can. Let's do that. And someone's going to take it. And then of course we can do screenshot as well for.
All right, ready? I'll take it.
Yeah. Is everyone ready?
Vicky,
yeah, I don't have the book, so
it's okay.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. One more. Awesome. I'll send it to you, Lisa, and you can. Well, I'll put it in the group.
Okay. Timer. And all right. So. Oh, we can't hear you, Alana.
I was just saying, I had mine reversed so you can read it.
Oh, that's okay. All right. So Alana, you're first. And let's start.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Introduction. We've written this book to introduce you to the universal laws and the practical processes that will guide you clearly and precisely to the realization of your natural state of well-being. Your reading of this book will give you the unique and beneficial experience of hearing precise, powerful answers to questions that I've accumulated from a lifetime of asking. And your successful utilization of this joy-based philosophy of practical spirituality will also help guide others to living whatever they would consider to be the perfect life. Many have indicated to me that my questions in many ways have mirrored their own. And so, as you experience the clarity and brilliance of Abraham's answers, not only will you likely begin to feel a true satisfaction that long-lasted questions have been answered, but you'll discover, as we, Esther and I, have a renewed enthusiasm for our own life experience. As you, from your fresh new outlook on life, begin to apply the practical processes that are offered here, you'll discover that you can deliberately create for yourself anything that you would do, be, or have. It seems to me that my life, from as far back as I can remember, produced a stream of seemingly never-ending questions, to which I wasn't able to find satisfactory answers, for I had strongly wanted to discover a philosophy of life that was based on absolute truth. But once Abraham came into our experience, revealing to Esther and me their explanation of the powerful laws of the universe, coupled with the effective processes that helped us to turn ideology and theory into practical results, I came to realize that the steady stream of books, teachers, and life experiences that I did encounter in my path were the perfect steps along the way to the discovery of Abraham. I like thinking about the opportunity that you now have as you read this book to discover for yourself the value of what Abraham offers, because I know how these teachings have enhanced our life experience. I'm also aware that you would not now be holding this book in your hands if your life experience had not prepared you, as my life has prepared me, for receiving this information. I feel an eagerness for you to dive into this book to discover the simple and powerful laws and practical processes that Abraham offers, so that you may begin to deliberately attract your experience, everything that you desire, and so that you may release anything from your experience that you don't want. A steady stream of religious groups. My parents weren't religious people, so I didn't really understand why it was that I felt such a powerful compulsion to find a church to become involved with in the tenets of its religion. But it was a powerful force within me as I was growing up. Maybe it was an attempt to fill that very real void that I felt deep inside, or maybe it was because so many others around me were demonstrating their religious fervor and their certainty that they had discovered truth. During my first 14 years, I lived in the 18 homes in 6 states, so I had the opportunity to evaluate a wide variety of philosophies. In any case, I systematically marched myself into church after church, each time hoping with all of my heart that inside these doors I would find what I was looking for. But as I moved from one religious or philosophical group to another, my disappointment grew as they each exclaimed their rightness, at the same time declaring all others were wrong. And in this environment, with my heart sinking again and again, I knew that I hadn't found the answers I was looking for. It was only after discovering the teachings of Abraham that I've been able to come to understand and to no longer feel negative emotion about those apparent philosophical contradictions. And so my search for answers continued. A Ouija board spells the alphabet.
So that's your 4 minutes, Elena.
Perfect.
Anna?
A Ouija board spells the alphabet. Even though I had never had a personal experience with a Ouija board, I did, nevertheless, have strong negative opinions about it. I believed that it was, at best, only a game, and at worst, an absolute hoax. So in 1959, when my friends in Spokane, Washington, presented me with the idea of playing with a board, I immediately dismissed it as ridiculous. But as my friends persisted and subsequently presented me with my first actual experience with it, I saw for myself that a real phenomenon was occurring. Therefore, since I was still searching for answers to my lifelong list of questions, I asked the board, how can I become truly good? At first, and with dramatic speed, it spelled the alphabet, and then the planchette pointed to read. Read what? I asked. It spelled books. And then when I asked, what books? It spelled, again, with that first dramatic speed, any and all by Albert Schweitzer. My friends had not heard of Albert Schweitzer, and while I knew very little about him, my curiosity was piqued, to say the least, and I decided to do some research to find out about this man who had just come into my conscious awareness in this truly extraordinary way. In the first library I could find, I discovered a very large sections of books written by Albert Schweitzer, and I systematically read them all. And while I cannot say that I discovered any specific answers to my long list of questions, Schweitzer's book, The Quest of the Historical Jesus, especially opened my mind to the awareness that there are many more ways of looking at things that I had been willing to consider. My enthusiasm for what I had hoped was to be a window into powerful enlightenment and answer all of my questions was equally dashed as I found neither powerful enlightenment from the Ouija board nor answers to all of my questions, but had certainly awakened within me the realization that there was an avenue of intelligent communication available that I had never believed was possible before I had experienced it myself. The Ouija board wouldn't work for me at all when I used it on my own, but I tried it on hundreds of people on my travels as an entertainer and found 3 people who had success with it. With some friends in Portland, Oregon, whom the board did work for, we talked for hundreds of hours with what we thought to be non-physical beings. What an entertaining parade of pirates, priests, politicians, and rabbis conversed with us. It was much like the kind of fascinating conversations you might engage in at parties, with individuals offering a wide variety of agendas, attitudes, and intellects. I have to say that I learned nothing of value from that board that I could use in my own life, or that I wanted to teach anybody else. So one day I just threw it away, and that was the end of that stage of my interest or activity with the Ouija board. However, this remarkable experience, especially with the intelligence that encouraged my reading of books, not only awakened within me an understanding that is much more out there than I currently understood, but it provoked within me an even more powerful desire to find answers. I came to believe that it was possible to tap into intelligence that had practical answers to questions about how the universe works, why we are all here, how we can live more joyous lives, and how we can fulfill our reasons for being here. Think and Grow Rich. Perhaps the first experience of actually finding practical answers to my growing list of questions came to me in the discovering of a fascinating book while I was doing concerts in a series of colleges and universities in 1965. The book was lying on a coffee table in the lobby of a small hotel somewhere in Montana, and I remember a contradiction formulating within me as I held it and looked at the words on the front cover. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The title was off-putting to me, for I, like so many others, had been taught to short my negative impression of rich people as justification for my own lack of easily acquired resources. There was something undeniably compelling about this book, though, and after I'd gotten only about 12 pages into it, the hair was standing up all over my body and thrill bumps were rippling up and down my spine. We've now come to understand that these physical, visceral sensations are confirming evidence that we are currently on the path of something of extreme value, but even when I felt that this book awakened within me the knowledge that my thoughts are important and that my life experience somehow reflects the contents of my thoughts. Pass.
The book was compelling and interesting, and it inspired a desire within me to attempt to follow the suggestions that were offered, and I did. Utilizing the teachings worked so well for me, in fact, that in a very brief amount of time, I was able to build a multinational business, giving me the opportunity to touch the lives of thousands of people in a meaningful way. I even began teaching the principles that I was learning. And although I had received incredible value from Napoleon Hill's life-changing book, many of the lives of those I was teaching weren't as dramatically improved as mine had been, no matter how many courses they took. So my search for more specific answers continued. Seth speaks about creating your reality. While my lifelong quest to discover meaningful answers to my questions still persisted, and my desire to find a way to help others more effectively achieve their goals loomed larger than ever before, I was temporarily distracted by all of that by the new life that Esther and I were making together in Phoenix, Arizona. We were married in 1980 after knowing each other for a few years, and we found ourselves in an inexplicably compatible. We were experiencing joy day after wonderful day, exploring our new city, making our new home, and discovering our new life together. And while Esther didn't exactly share my thirst for knowledge or my hunger for answers, she was eager about life, always happy and very nice to be with. One day, while passing time in the library, I spotted a book entitled Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts. And it seemed that before I could extract the book from the shelf, I felt my hair stand on end, and my body was again covered with thrill bumps. I leafed through the pages of this book, wondering what it could possibly contain that could be responsible for my emotional response. During the time that Esther and I had been together, I had discovered only one point of contention between us. She didn't want to hear about my Ouija board experiences. Whenever I would launch into what I considered to be an extremely entertaining account, Esther would leave the room. She'd been taught during her childhood to have tremendous fear of anything that wasn't physical. And since I didn't want to disturb her, I stopped telling those stories, at least while she was around. And so it wasn't really a surprise to me that Esther didn't want to hear about the book Seth Speaks either. Author Jane Roberts would go into sort of a trance and allow Seth, a non-physical personality, to speak through her in order to dictate the series of highly influential Seth books. I found the works to be stimulating and fascinating, and I began to see an avenue to some of the answers of my long list of questions. But Esther was frightened by the book. Her discomfort surfaced immediately upon hearing of the manner in which the book had been written, and was powerfully compounded when she viewed the strange-looking picture on the back of the book of Jane in trance speaking for Seth. "You can read the book if you want to," Esther told me, "but please don't bring it into our bedroom. I've always believed in judging the tree by its fruits, so everything that I consider I do from the standpoint of how I feel about it. And there is so much of Seth's material that just felt right to me. So it didn't make any difference to me where it came from or how it was presented. In essence, I felt that I had found valuable information that I could use and that I could pass on to other people whom I believed could use it. I was excited." My Fears Were Resolved by Esther Hicks. I thought it was both very wise and very kind of Jerry not to push the Seth books on me, because I really did feel a strong aversion to them. The whole idea of a person being in contact with a non-physical being made me extremely uncomfortable. So, since Jerry didn't want to disturb me, he would get up early in the morning, and while I was sleeping, he'd read those books to himself. Pass.
It would be me. All right. Gradually, when he'd find something that was particularly interesting to him, he would gently slip it into the conversation, and in my less resistant state, I could often hear the value of the idea. Bit by bit, Jerry introduced another concept and another, until I began to feel true interest in those amazing works. Eventually, it became our morning ritual. We would sit together, and Jerry would read it to me from the Seth books. My fears weren't grounded in any negative personal experience, but from hearsay that I'd picked up, probably from others who had also picked it up from hearsay. Looking back, it now seems utterly illogical that I had those fears. In any event, I experienced a real change in attitude once I realized that, as far as my personal experience was concerned, it all felt good. As time passed, as my fear of Jane's process in the receiving of the information from Seth subsided, I began to feel immense appreciation for these wonderful books. In fact, we were so happily involved in what we were reading that we thought we would take a trip to New York to meet Jane and her husband, Robert, and even Seth. How far I had come in that now I actually wanted to meet this non physical being, but the author's phone number was unpublished, so we didn't know exactly what to do next to accomplish this meeting. One day we were eating lunch in a little cafe next to a bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Jerry was leafing through a new book he'd just purchased when a stranger was sitting nearby asked us, "Have you read any of the Seth books?" We could hardly believe what we were hearing because we hadn't told a single person that we were reading these books. Then the man asked, "Did you know that Jane Roberts is dead?" I remember my eyes filling with tears as the impact of those words washed over me. It was as if someone had told me my sister was dead and I hadn't known about it. It was shocking. We felt such disappointment as we realized that now there would be no possible way for us to meet Jane and Rob or Seth. Sheila channels Theo. Within a day or so of our hearing about Jane's death, our friends and business associates, Nancy and her husband, Wes, met us for dinner. "We have a tape we want you to hear," Nancy said, pushing a cassette into my hand. Our friend's behavior seemed awkward to me. There was just something odd about it. In fact, I felt the same feeling come from them that I'd felt from Jerry upon his discovery of the Seth books. It was as if they had a secret that they wanted to share, but were worried about how we'd respond once it was shared. "What is it?" we asked. "It's channeled," Nancy whispered. I don't believe that either Jerry or I had ever heard the word channeled offered in that context. "What do you mean, channeled?" I asked. As Nancy and Wes offered their brief and somewhat disjointed explanation, both Jerry and I realized that we were describing the same process by which the set books had been written. Her name is Sheila, they continued, and she speaks for an entity named Theo. She's coming to Phoenix, and you can make an appointment to talk with her if you want to. We decided to make an appointment, and I still remember how excited we were. We met in a beautiful, Frank Lloyd Wright designed home in Phoenix. It was broad daylight, and to my relief, nothing even remotely spooky happened. Everything was very comfortable and pleasant. As we sat and visited with Theo, well, I should say, as Jerry visited with Theo, I don't think I said a word during that meeting. I was absolutely amazed. Pass.
Jerry had a notebook full of questions. Ones he said he'd saved up since he was 6 years old. He was so excited, asking question after question, sometimes interrupting in the middle of an answer so that he could get one more question in before our time was up. The half hour passed so quickly, and we felt wonderful. Can we come back tomorrow? I asked, because now I was developing a list of questions that I wanted to ask Theo. Should I meditate? When we went back the next day, I asked Theo, through Sheila, what we could do to move faster toward our goals. Theo said affirmations and then gave me a wonderful one. I, Esther Hicks, see and draw to me through divine love those beings who seek enlightenment through my process. The sharing will elevate us both now. Jerry and I knew about affirmations. We were already using them. And then I asked, what else? Theo replied, meditate. Well, I didn't personally know anybody who was meditating, but the whole idea of it just felt strange to me. It wasn't something that I could see myself doing. Jerry said he associated it with people seeing how bad their lives could become, how much pain or poverty they could take and still exist. In my mind, meditation belonged in the same weird category as walking on hot coals or lying on beds of nails or standing on one foot all day, holding your hand out, asking for a donation. But then I asked Theo, well, what do you mean by meditate? Theo responded, for 15 minutes each day, sit in a quiet room, wear comfortable clothing, and focus on your breathing. And as your mind wanders, and it will, just release the thought and focus back on your breathing. I thought, well, that doesn't sound so weird. I asked if I should bring our 14-year-old daughter, Tracy, to meet Theo, and the response was, if it is her asking, but it is not necessary for you to, our channel. I remember how implausible it seemed that something as strange as being a channel or as significant as being one could have not been known by us before now. And then the tape recorder clicked off, indicating that, once again, our time was up. I couldn't believe how fast the time had passed. And so, as I looked down at my list of still unanswered questions, Stevie, the friend of Sheila's, who was operating the tape recorder and taking notes during our conversation with Theo, perhaps noticed my mild frustration, because she asked, do you have one last question? Would you like to know the name of your spiritual guide? That was not a question that would have occurred to me, because I had never heard the term spiritual guide. But I liked the sound of such a thing, so I said, yes, who is my spiritual guide? Theo said, we are told it will be given to you directly. You will have a clairvoyant experience, and you will know. We left that beautiful house that day feeling better than we ever remembered. Theo had encouraged us to meditate together. Because you are compatible, it will be more powerful. And so, following Theo's suggestions, we went directly home, put on our bathrobes, our most comfortable clothing, closed the drapes in the living room, and sat with the intention of meditating, whatever that meant. I remember thinking, I'm going to meditate every day for 15 minutes, and I'm going to find out the name of my spiritual guide. It felt odd for Jerry and me to be doing this strange thing together, so we sat in large wingback chairs with an entourage between us so we couldn't see each other. Not entourage, but I don't know what the word that is. Sorry.
Etagere.
Next. Who's that?
Began breathing. Something began breathing me. Theo's instruction on the process of meditation had been very brief. For 15 minutes each day, sit in a quiet room, wear comfortable clothing, and focus on your breathing. And as your mind wanders, and it will, just release the thought and focus back on your breathing. So we set a timer for 15 minutes, and I settled back into my large, comfortable chair and focused on my breathing. I began counting my breaths in and out. Almost immediately, I began to feel a sort of numbness come over me. It was an extremely pleasant sensation. I liked it. The timer sounded its alarm and startled me. As I regained my awareness of Jerry and the room, I exclaimed, "Let's do it again." We set the timer for another 15 minutes, and again I felt that wonderful feeling of detachment or numbness. This time I couldn't feel the chair beneath me. It was as if I were suspended there in the room and nothing else was there. So we set the timer for another 15 minutes, and again I settled into this new delicious feeling of detachment. And then I felt the incredible sensation of being breathed. It was as if something powerful and loving was breathing the air into my lungs and then drawing the air back out. I realize now that this was my first powerful contact with Abraham. But at the time, all I knew that something more loving than anything I'd ever experienced before was flowing throughout my entire body. Jerry said that as he heard the difference in the sound of my breathing, he had looked around the etagere at me, and it appeared to him that I was in a state of ecstasy. When the timer sounded and I began to regain my conscious awareness of my surroundings, there was a feeling of an energy moving through me unlike anything I'd ever felt before. It was the most extraordinary experience of my lifetime, and my teeth were buzzed, not chattered, for several minutes. My teeth buzzed, not chattered, for several minutes. What an amazing sequence of events had led to this still rather unbelievable meeting with Abraham. Irrational fears that I had carried with me my entire life, which had no actual basis in my own life experience, had been released and were replaced with a most loving and personal encounter with source energy. I had never read anything that had given me any real understanding of what or who God was, but I knew that what I experienced must certainly be just that. My nose spells the alphabet. Because of the powerful and emotional experience of our very first attempt, we made a decision to set aside 15 extra minutes every day to meditate.
Shoshana?
Because of the powerful and emotional experience of our very first attempt, we made a decision to set aside 15 to 20 minutes every day to meditate. And so for approximately 9 months, Jerry and I sat in our wingback's chair, silently breathing and feeling well-being. And then right before Thanksgiving of 1985, during a period of meditation, I experienced something new. My head began moving very gently. It was a very pleasant sensation, in a state of detachment, to feel the sensation of the subtle movement. It was almost a feeling of flying. I didn't really think anything of it, except that I knew I wasn't doing it, and it was extremely pleasant experience. My head moved like that for 2 or 3 days, and whenever we were meditating and on the third day or so, I realized my head wasn't just meaninglessly moving around. I was actually spelling letters with my nose as if it were writing on a chalkboard. I exclaimed in amazement, "Jerry, I'm spelling the alphabet with my nose." With the conscious realizations that something remarkable was happening and that someone was offering communication to me, intense waves of thrills, bumps began moving all through my body. Never before that moment, or since have I experienced the intensity of such a wonderfully thrilling sensations rippling through my body. And they spelled, "I am Abraham. I'm your spiritual guide. I love you, and I'm here to work with you." Jerry got his notebook and began recording everything that I was awkwardly translating with my nose, letter by letter. Abraham began answering Jerry's questions, sometimes for hours at a time. We were so excited to have made contact with Abraham in this way. Abraham begins to type the alphabet. It was somewhat slow and an awkward means of communication, but Jerry was getting the answers to his questions, and the experience was absolutely exhilarating for both of us. So for about 2 months, Jerry asked questions. Abraham answered by spelling our words, by guiding the movement of my nose, and Jerry wrote everything down. Then one night, while we were laying in bed, and my hand began to softly thumb on Jerry's chest, it surprised me, and I explained to him, "That's not me. It must be them." And then I felt a strong impulse to type. I went to the typewriter, held my hands over the keyboard, and in the same way that my head had been involuntarily moving to spell out the letters in the air with my nose, my hands began to move across the keyboard of my typewriter. They were moving so rapidly with such power that was somewhat alarming to Jerry. He stood by, ready to grab my hands if necessary, because he didn't want my fingers to be hurt. Pass.
He said that we were moving so fast that he could barely see them, but there was nothing to be alarmed about. My fingers touched every key many, many times before they began spelling the letters of the alphabet. And then they proceeded to write nearly a page of "I want to type, I want to type, I want to type," with no capitalization and no spaces between the words. Then my fingers began typing a message slowly and methodically, asking that I go to the typewriter every day for 15 minutes. And so that's the way we communicated for the next 2 months. The typist becomes the speaker. One day we were driving on the freeway in our small Cadillac Seville, and on either side of us was a large 18-wheeler truck and trailer. This section of the freeway didn't seem to be banked properly, and as all three of us began making the sweeping turn at the same time, both trucks seemed to be crossing over into our lane. It appeared to us that we were about to be crushed by these large vehicles. In the midst of that intensity of emotion, Abraham began to speak. I felt my jaw tighten, not so different from the sensation of yawning. And then my mouth began to involuntarily form these words: "Take the next exit." And we did. We sat by that underpass, and Jerry talked to Abraham for many hours that day. It was very exciting. Although I grew more comfortable every day as the process of my translation of Abraham evolved, I asked Jerry if we could just let this be our secret, because I was afraid of how others might respond if they found out what was happening to me. In time, however, a handful of close friends began gathering to dialogue with Abraham, and it was about a year later that we decided to open these teachings to the public, as we are still continuing to do. The evolution of my experience in translating the vibration of Abraham continues every day. Every seminar leaves Jerry and me feeling amazement at their Abraham's clarity, wisdom, and love. One day I laughed so hard at this realization. I was so afraid of the idea of the Ouija board, and now I am one. The delicious Abraham experiences evolve. We're never able to find adequate words to express what we feel for this work with Abraham. Jerry seems to have always known what he wanted most, and he'd found ways to achieve much of it before meeting Abraham. But what he has said is that Abraham has brought to his understanding and awareness of our purpose here, and an absolute clarity of how we're getting or not getting, and with that, the knowledge that we have complete control. There are no bad breaks, no unlucky days, and no need to move with the tides that we have been moved by someone else. Also, we are free. We are the absolute creators of our experience, and we love it. Abraham has explained that my husband and I were a perfect combination of presenting these teachings because Jerry's powerful desire to find answers to his questions summoned Abraham to us. And I was able to quiet my mind and release resistance in order to allow the answers to come forth. It takes very little time for me to allow Abraham to begin speaking through me. From my point of view, I just set forth the intention. Abraham, I want to clearly speak your words, and then I focus on my breathing. Within a few seconds, I can feel the clarity, love, and power of Abraham rising within me. And then off we go.
Ooh, wow. Who knew that story of Abraham? Who's read it before? You've read it
I
before,
have.
Anna?
I have not.
I think it's in Ask and It Is Given as well too. I think
Oh,
that
is
story.
it? I haven't
Yeah.
read that in a long time.
I've
Okay.
partially read it or heard her say it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like the
Yeah, I
YouTube.
might have heard a version of it. That's true, Rosie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every time I hear it, I'm like, can we do that? Can I do that? Can I sit? And I don't know,
That's
not
literally my
Abraham.
notes.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
care if your name is George. Can you just come to me and let's just have a chat? Or Bob. Bob is fine too.
Yeah. What I
Here's the truth.
understand,
You
eh?
can have that chat without sitting.
Yeah.
You can have that clarity without. I can't sit still.
I've been
But I
it's
do
interesting
have
that you say that because that's a question that I've been having. So one of my intentions is to meditate every day this year. And so um I find it very challenging for me to just sit and be still for, like 15 minutes. I'm like, are you kidding? That's like 500 years. Like that just seems too long. So I'm wondering, like I meditate in between things, right? But it's never like a set amount of time, and I don't know if that's like as effective as sitting down and meditating for 15 minutes and listening to, the
Mhm.
air conditioning or whatever the case may be. So,
So I meditate while I work out. I lift very heavy weights. You really have to clear your mind and focus on your. I'm being very realistic. When you lift heavy weights, in order not to injure yourself, you have to clear your
Yeah.
mind and focus on your breathing so you can have the right form.
Yeah,
true.
that's true. Yeah. I think the message that Abraham leaves in the book about sitting quietly and comfortable, sitting and being still, I think that definitely is a clear message. I'm not a perfect meditator by all means, but I do sit quiet and sit still for I can do quite a long meditation, up to like 30 minutes sitting still. Guided or unguided. If I'm really struggling, guided definitely is the way. So, but I think it's really I love what he said, like affirmations and meditation. And I mean, what are the two things that we talk about the most if we're trying to help our clients, right? Affirmations, meditation. Yeah.
I love how it started with like the the want to the curiosity to want to know more, and then going to the
Mm,
different churches or philosophical teachings or whatever.
mm,
It resonated a lot with me because like even throughout school, no matter what I was taking, my electives were always like something to do with monotheistic religions or whatever, trying to like gain a more understanding of like this inner knowing that does not add up to what outside teaches us kind of thing. So I love how even like not tampering with like the Ouija board because we're taught it's like dark energy or whatever it might be, but you can definitely use it for light. You know what I mean?
I
It's
never
all
thought
about
of
your
that
intention.
before.
Because clearly in here they used it for light. They didn't use it for dark. Like it
You're
wasn't like
right.
channeling anything bad. It was just everything is a tool and it can be utilized to do dark and light and work. What are you using it for? Right?
Yeah. It's
So
the
good.
intention behind what you're
Exactly.
right. So if your
Mhm.
intention is good, and then that's what you're going to receive. So I
Yeah.
have a question. If so every morning when I go to yoga, I always listen to Esther's rampages. And so I
Mm,
think it goes in line with what we're talking about right now, but like getting into feeling is the secret, right? So how do I feel about a certain situation? And if I feel good, then continue to go. And then, but how have you guys got into alignment? Because whatever it is that if I say I desire for this, it's already done, right? The universe is then going to place the people, places, et cetera, things in my path in order to achieve that, as long as I'm in alignment with it, right? So if I go and say I want to be, I don't know, the number one publisher in my company, and then my next thought is, but there's only one, and so therefore I can't be it. And so then the universe is like, okay, well then I'm not going to give it to you because you don't think you. So how do you guys get into alignment? Is it through meditation? Is it through, like, I would love if you guys have, I don't know, that's the thought process I'm on right now.
Mm, that's
Something
where
that
he wants to go.
something that just came up for me, is it Anna or Anna?
Anna, like Princess
Anna,
Anna
okay.
from Frozen.
Princess Anna. I like it. I like it. As you were saying that, like, I think you're talking about being in alignment as a whole, but sometimes, like, I look at it and how you can do it piece by piece.
Mm.
So when you have that thought, so you want to be the number one publisher, and I learned this from Kathleen, like, we have all these thoughts that come into our head. Those aren't beliefs. We get to choose whether we believe them or not. So if that thought comes in that, well, there can only be one,
Mm.
then you get to, in that immediate moment, choose whether you
You
believe it or not.
Mm. That's so
True.
good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there was a part in here, on page 9, where they said, my fears weren't grounded in any negative personal experience, but from hearsay that I'd
Mm.
picked up, probably from others who had just also picked it up from hearsay. And so, like, my notes were, like, it made me question everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you want to be the top, but what does the top mean? Is that just one? Like, I don't know. I think that there's a way that we can think differently. It does start with, like, I think choosing those thoughts, and that's how you stay in alignment, is deciding to take them on or not. Yeah. I don't know what you guys think of that.
That's good. I have something, but Shoshana was going to talk first.
Oh, thank you. So
Of course.
why? Why do you want to be the number one? What do you want to accomplish by being the number one publisher?
So it's interesting that you ask that question, because it's not necessarily that being the number one publisher per se, right? But it's me stepping into my greatest and highest self and really stepping into my role, because I love what I do and it helps other people. And so the more I help others, the more it's going to elevate me. And if I help more people, then it's like ipso facto, that's going to happen anyway, right? That is going to be a natural byproduct of me doing what I love and
So
showing up
you could
fully.
still do that in your current position without being
Mhm.
number one. Why is that your desire? What do you want to accomplish by being that?
It's a good question.
Because you don't think you're making a strong enough impact right now?
Right.
Okay. That really, like, feel it, the why. The why is always going to make you question. So they felt it. Esther felt it, right? She kept on diving back in. Why? Why do I want to do this? Why is this
Yeah.
important to me?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Okay.
And with when you ask the why, Tony Robbins does something where you have to go like 7 layers deep.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
basically, so when you ask yourself why, get connected with that. Then ask yourself, well, you say, well, I want to make a bigger, well, why do you want to make a bigger impact? Answer that question. Then you answer that question and say, well, why do you want that? And keep going. Like I said, 5, 6, 7. It might not take you 7, but and once you hit the one that really is the one, I found that there will be an immediate wave of emotion. It will
Mm.
Yeah.
literally take you over. So you could get it in 3,
Right.
but it will, I think it'll take a few and be with that. The other thing I just wanted to say was when you said, well, what do you do? I think it's very important to know what moves you. For me, I
Mhm.
love music. So I'll listen to the music on the YouTube with like the hertz, like the certain, frequencies.
Binaural beats. Yeah.
Yeah, like I listen to that, but it's all based on what gets you in a state, what gets your mind in the state of wanting to create or connecting to your bigger, highest power. If it's being in nature, if it's, whatever it is for you, if it's sitting in a bubble bath or in a hot shower, like whatever is for you can create your state of bliss, or in a moment where your brain and your body can fully relax and really connect to who you are and your purpose. That's where you can get to. And then that's, to me, that's what you in search of. That's where you can ask those questions and be connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agree.
That's good. So I heard something whenever you were speaking and you were talking about, I want to be the top publisher. And I'd like to know what you mean by there's only place for one, because there's a certain type of feeling and worth that I felt from that, meaning that you don't want to take it away from anybody.
Right.
That's a limiting belief.
Yeah.
That comes down to feeling like you're going to take it away. But what if it has nothing to do with taking it away? It's just, it's your time and place to be there the next time.
Yeah.
It's never about what they're not doing. Right? Because we need to understand that we're all one.
Right.
And there's always like the next time, the next person, the next one, the next level. It just means that you've reached where you're seeking to go.
Yeah.
And
I'm a firm
feel you
believer
deserve
that
to be there?
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that there's the quote that there's enough pie to go around. Like,
Of
just
course.
because I achieve doesn't mean that you're not going to.
Right.
But I guess it's the human part of me of like being number one. There can only be one's number one spot, right? Like that type of thing. But I'm also a firm believer that just because I achieve something doesn't mean that somebody else can't. And if somebody else achieves it, doesn't mean that I can't. Like, we can both do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I would go back to like what Shoshana said and think about how, like, what does it mean to you? What does that mean? Because what it means for someone else to be there is not going to be what it means for you to be there. So
absolutely.
The meaning for you, if your intention, and here's where your alignment comes in, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions that you take to be in alignment, to be in that spot, or how you see yourself at a new level, that alone doesn't have anything to do with anybody else.
Right.
Your alignment is yours and yours alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Anna, you can use that. I love the why exercise, Nikki. I'm so glad you brought that up. I use it all the time. And you can also use that in a way of, asking yourself, why aren't you aligned? Like, why aren't you there? Because you might get to the root of what you're feeling. Because when I hear something came up for me, and I know we don't know each other, but that there's something with being in that number one and what that requires of you.
Yeah.
That maybe there's a block there that are you ready to step into that? Or I'm not sure exactly. That's just what's coming up. Rosie?
I had a beautiful
that's
visual actually of understanding, and even how we coach of this. Like, think of it, and I was sharing something similar to Lisa before about how our growth, like if we don't look at it as a higher than or lower than, it's just like on a horizon and a spectrum of like, this is neutrality. You're either in the positive or you're either in the negative, and it's just a sense of perception of where you're vibrating. So like, where right now the dominating vibration and feeling is that, oh, how can I take up space? How can I be number one? There's only limited space. Like, it's all those vibrations of thinking versus the why, asking the why question and attaching to the feeling of what that why feels like, and really elicits from a place of like love and not fear.
Right.
You're raising your vibration, not this way, but you're raising it this way. So you're on this side of the spectrum. And now all of a sudden, the people, the places, the conversations, the opportunities, or whatever, and it could be like a number one position, but maybe it's on Amazon, maybe it's on like New York's Best Time. Like, it could be anywhere. It doesn't matter. but it'll come to
Yeah.
you because you're vibrating here in the opportunities of the love and the high vibration of like, oh my God, this is my why I'm lit up by this, not lit up by fear, worry, doubt, competition. How can I blah, blah,
Mm.
blah over here.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The two ends of the same stick, right? That's what they talk
Yeah.
about all the time. Like yeah, I love it.
Thank you for flipping that stick. I have never heard, like,
Yeah.
I only go like this.
I was just
That
telling you
feels
the
so
same.
much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Way
We're all
better.
Thank you.
equal. We're all
Way.
equal opportunity.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
need to feel like someone is on a pedestal or you're higher than. It just feels like an unreachable thing. And to
Yeah.
the human, it's just like, oh my God, I'm unworthy. Oh, I would never reach that. Oh my God, they quantum leaped again. How am I ever going to reach that? You don't need to reach that. You need to reach your own level of spectrum of like this high vibration so you can
The
achieve
highest.
whatever the frig you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And there's infinite possibilities this way, and there's infinite possibilities this way. Which way are you going?
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a
I love
really
it.
good analogy. I love that. That's perfect. I
That's
hate to do
great.
this. I have to hop off. I have a 12 o'clock
Okay.
I also
appointment
have
that
to
I have to
hop
go.
off, but Lisa and I did the website last week
Yes.
about
Yes.
the why, 7 layers deep. And
7
there's,
layers. Mhm.
yeah, two things. You get to type it in and then you could print it off. I will tell you to do two answers. The first one, somebody punched you in your stomach, that first gut answer, that first one word. Then think a little bit deeper and write the second one down. They're both extremely, extremely important, and you're going to get so many ahas and reasons and fears and all the rest of it from both. So each layer,
Perfect.
that first and the second.
Yeah.
Awesome. Will you guys put that website in our chat?
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Appreciate you guys. I'll
ladies.
Thank
see
you,
you next
everyone.
week.
This
This
has
Thank
was
been so
you. It
wonderful.
was amazing. Amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye.
This was so good. Thanks, Lisa.
Of
Thank
course. Yeah.
Um,
I'm just trying to stop the recording.